again, and welcome back to my kitchen. Today, guys, I would like to show you how I can Velveeta cheese. And yes, I am talking about the 2-pound loaves of processed cheese spread, or whatever you want to call it. No, it's not exactly a healthy product. It's not real dairy, but sometimes it's nice to have it on hand for grilled cheese sandwiches or to add to creamy cheese soups as kind of a final ingredient just to finish off your soup when you're heating it up. And it is super easy to can. Now, technically, Velveeta has a pretty long shelf life as long as you do not open it, all right? So it can sit on your shelf at room temperature or in a coolish place for a really, really long time. But there are issues with doing that, and a couple of the issues are bugs and rodents, all right? And as clean as we all try to keep our homes, we all know that bugs and rodents happen, all right? Mice move in, particularly in the fall before winter, and they will chew through these cardboard boxes and right through the foil wrapper. And so I do choose, when I do have some of this on hand, I do choose to can it just because it just makes it a lot safer from those invasive little enemies. But this is really, really easy to do. Anybody can do this. Doesn't take a lot of time, doesn't take a lot of effort, and then you have your cheese on the shelf just for years on end. So I'm going to page you down. Well, actually, you know what? Before I page you down, I'm also going to give you another little handy tip, all right? These nice little cardboard boxes that your Velveeta loaf comes in actually holds standard size canning lids perfectly, all right? So you can store like your used lids in here if you're going to reuse them for dry goods. I really love these little boxes to store my glass insert canning lids. They hold them perfectly. They keep them stacked nice and keep them safe from chipping and breaking. So another little handy tip for you there today. All right, so I'm just going to get your page down here and show you what I have going on. And I had a total of 8 pounds of Velveeta today. I had four of these 2-pound loaves of Velveeta, and approximately 4 half pints can be filled out of one 2-pound block of Velveeta cheese. But I want to show you exactly what it is that I do. And you know me, you guys, quick, easy, and the least amount of mess is what I want. Now, you can go ahead and heat your Velveeta and melt it, and then just ladle it into your jars. But if I can get by with less dishes and less time, that's how I want to do it. So what I do is I just cube up my Velveeta into pretty large chunks, okay? These are not small chunks. They're fairly large chunks. And I press these in very well with my hands. And in the half-pint jars, it's pretty easy to reach your hand all the way down into the bottom of that jar. You can also do this in pint size if you need that much cheese, but it's a little bit harder to get it packed in here nice and tight. But I just get my hand in there and I try to remove as many air bubbles as I can just by pressing this cheese in with my fingers. And I do it a couple of blocks at a time. I don't like to fill up the whole jar and then try to work the air out. I just do it a couple blocks at a time and just really press it in there good and try to get as much air out as I can, compacting it nice and tight. Now I'll add one more on the top. You can pack these to within about a ½ inch headspace. A ½ inch or just slightly more than a ½ inch headspace. And that's how I prepare my jar for now. So let's just do another one here. And really work it into the corner of those jars to try to get, try not to trap any air in there if you can at all avoid it. this presses in fairly easy. You know, Velveeta cheese is pretty soft. So it really isn't an issue at all getting this compacted into your jars. Actually, I'll show you what that looks like. Got compacted in there really well. All right, we'll get our last couple of jars filled here. Alrighty. Now what I do is, excuse me. Now what I do is I have, you know, the cheese is room temperature, of course. I have a room temperature canner, and I'm going to leave these jars open, but I'm kind of going to use my canner almost like a, what they call a double boiler. And so I have a couple of inches of water in the bottom of my canner, and I'm going to put my filled jars of cheese just right down into those couple of inches of water, and I'm going to heat this up until the cheese melts. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take those jars back out of the canner, and we're just going to kind of debubble them a little bit more before adding our, before wiping our rims and adding our lids and rings. So what this does is in essence, we are melting the cheese right inside of our jars instead of melting it in a pan and making another pan dirty. I just find this the easiest way to do it. So I'm going to put this on medium heat. I'm going to leave my lid off of the canner, and I'm just going to allow that cheese to melt. And once it's melted, I will lift the jars very carefully back out and debubble. So I'll be back in just a short bit. All right, guys, so I have allowed my cheese sauce to just kind of sit in the pan and melt a little bit. And quite honestly, you can kind of see, Sadie, stop, honey. You can kind of see that bubbles have come up. Do you see how the bubbles have kind of worked up in the cheese? So it actually kind of debubbles itself in a way. And sometimes I'll sit and tap it just a little bit. But most of the time what I'll do is after it's melted like that, I'll just kind of run a knife around and just make sure that all of the really major big bubbles are completely out of my sauce. Or out of my cheese. I guess technically it's not really sauce, but out of my melted cheese. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to take and you're going to make sure that your jar rim is wiped really well. And this one kind of takes a little bit of effort because that cheese that was on the rim of the jar has kind of dried a little bit. So make sure you really, really wipe these well, okay? Get everything off of that rim. And then, of course, place your lid and get it back into your can. I think I can just reach, yep, not too awful hot. And there again, you can see how those bubbles have worked up. See at the top of the cheese? How the air bubbles have just kind of worked themselves up with the heat. Tap them a little bit. Work that melted cheese around a little. Just to make sure all the air bubbles are out. And then wipe the rim of that jar super good. And I just use a clean wet washcloth. And get the lid on and get that back in the canner. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish up debubbling and get all my rims on there, and then I'll be back in a minute. All right, guys, so I've got all of my cheese debubbled and back into the canner, and I'm going to get my lid just set onto, well, this is my pressure canner, but cheese only requires a short hot water bath or steam can. And I am using my Presto stovetop canner as a steam canner today. Steam canning and hot water bathing are virtually the same thing. It's just steam canning takes a lot less water. You don't have to submerge your jars underneath the water. So we are going to steam can or hot water bath our half pint jars of cheese for 20 minutes. If you choose to do this in a pint-sized jar, I suggest hot water bathing or steam canning for 25 minutes. So I'm going to get my canner up to a full vent, and then I'm going to start my process time at that point in time for 20 minutes. And I will be back in a little while to show you the amazing results. All right, guys, so I got through my 20-minute steam canning process, and I'll get my jars removed here. And you can see how lovely that turns out. Just a really, really easy project. And like I said, yeah, I know this isn't real cheese, but you know what? It sure is good in a soup base, and once in a while, a toasted cheese sandwich is nice to have. So if you have some Velveeta on hand, now you know how simple and easy it is to get it canned up for shelf stability. So that's about all I have on that subject today. I hope you learned something and took something out of it. And as always, thank you for spending your time with me. God bless you all, and happy canning, everybody.